Peace, Roundnet family. It's Eli from White Lotus Roundnet, and today I am hyped to bring you a pretty crazy hour-long conversation with a man named Charles Henri. Now, I wasn't planning on publishing this conversation. I was just having a private conversation with Charles, but after having the conversation, I realized holy moly, this man thinks about Roundnet on a level that most humans have not touched. I've spoken to a lot of people in the Roundnet community, and nobody has done calculations about the way that the ball reflects off the surface in order to create the most satisfying arc for a viewer to get the best viewing experience of Roundnet. That is the level of which Charles Henri is thinking about this game. So some of you may have heard of Charles before because he started a company called Revol. The thing that's crazy about Revol is that it's Roundnet without a net. Rather than a net, the playing surface is hard plastic. That is a completely game-changing idea, and it solves a lot of huge problems that Roundnet has that most of us, I don't even think, have thought about as problems, again, because we haven't thought at the same level of depth that this man is thinking on. I'm not saying that this is definitely the solution, but I am saying Charles Henri is someone who everybody in the Roundnet community should listen to. One, because he's just a dope, fun dude to be around, and two, because he's absolutely obsessed with making this sport the absolute best sport it can be. And I think if we ignore voices and creative ideas like this man has, we are completely shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of what's possible here. So please, enjoy this episode. We're going to talk all about the history of competitive Roundnet and when rule change started to be a thing. We're going to talk about how he's been rule testing since 2018 and all of the different tests that he's done and why he developed the net that he did, or not net, it's a board, why he developed the board that he did, and what the advantages are to playing on a board. So this is going to be a really deep dive. Awesome for anyone who is thinking about how this sport can really reach its potential. So without further ado, I introduce you all to Charles Henri. Let's get into it. Why did you choose to not do like a net? Like, why did you choose to do a hard surface?
So the idea was born in my mind from a thing that we would call spike table when I was competing in the US on the sidelines of tournament. There would be a board that was raised like weight. It was like waist height, and we
Yeah.
could just pepper off a hard surface in between games. And people were having fun and having like more rallies on the sidelines than in their actual games. So that's where the idea came from. And the first Revol test that I did was trying to uh, make offense harder by making the set smaller. So we were already playing with the Spikeball Pro Kit at that time. And when I tried to only connect 4 rims instead of 5, the sturdier um, rims wouldn't bend enough to allow me to do it. So I went back to a regular uh, standard Spikeball kit so I could connect only 4 rims and make the target smaller. Um, and when I did that, offense was harder because the target was smaller. Angles were easier to cover on defense, but the area near the lip that led to big lip ups and change of trajectories that were hard to defend were happening more frequently because the area in the middle of the net that leads to the nice, predictable bounce, true bounce, uh, that area shrunk, and the lip area near the rim stayed. That's
Mm.
when I put a board on top of a net, standard size, to see what it would do. The idea of the board is that if I can get rid of the pockets by playing off a standard surface, I can then change the dimensions of the playing area. So by playing on the board, offense was even better because the ball would never lip up. And without the pockets and the bad hits on the net, offense was even more overpowered. So that's when I started decreasing the size of the target, um, and I made it pretty small. Where at one point, um, uh, defense was a viable. It was a way to win, but when setting was good, when the set was over the middle, you could still hit horizontally off the board, and it would never lip up. So you could hit too low in a way that the defense didn't have a chance. That's where the idea of the raised lip um, came from. So I started increasing the size of the target again, and at the same time increasing the height of the lip to find um, a target that would bring more balance to the game with a standard size round net ball and the rules we used to play uh, before the no-hit zone, before the pandemic. Um,
So what year was it when you were doing the spike table stuff? Like when did that happen?
Spike Table was on the sidelines of tournament in maybe 2018, summer of 2018. My first testing of the four rim uh, round net was in the summer of 2019. And the the I think yes, the first time I put a board on top of a net was during the summer of 2019. And after the first lockdown in June of 2020, that's when I considered that I did the first test because I had so much time to think about it during the first lockdown. And I figured out exactly what I wanted to test. And I did the first test with the Prince in the park, in Jarry Park here in Montreal. And we played off a coffee table that that I that I found on Marketplace, and that was the first official test here, where I realized that playing off a board was fun.
Okay, so you've been like set and rule testing since like 2019 or 2018,
Yeah,
like around
yeah,
that time.
yes, yeah, because in 2018, in the Roundnet community and on the Spikeball Facebook page, all the posts, all the discussions were about change
Mm.
because all the players that were playing the game at that time came from the rally ball area. And for some people, the golden era of Roundnet, um, where defense was the way to win. That's when I started playing. And then the game uh, slowly switched to a serve heavy game because serve receive had always to keep up with serving, but serve receive couldn't. So every summer we would see serve receive get a lot better, but serving improve even more. So ace percentage went way up and rally percentage was going down. So people were asking for rule changes and better equipment to make the sport more professional, more spectator friendly, and more rally based. Just how
So
it the competitive roundnet started.
yeah, what would you call like this golden age of Roundnet when it was like a defensive rally based sport? What was that timeline? I wasn't even playing that.
Yeah, it was from the competitive roundnet started around 2012, and you can see footage of that on YouTube. And people's the players hitting is terrible, but it's still fun to watch because they rally back and forth for so long, and you can see like how exhausted they are after a rally. When you see the four players bent over after a rally, you know the rally was fun, even if the hitting is not optimized. Um, so rallies went on for a few years. You had to play defense to win, and I think for many OGs, the best finals that happened like pre-No Zone was the finals in 2016, in between two guys. So Troy Mock, Preston Bies, and Chico Spikes, who were the mm, the not absolute the first OGs. So Chico Spikes, um, Sean Boyer, and Skylar Bowles, they would just win everything, get crazy touches. It was like quick reflexes, and they would just win everything until 2016, almost everything. And that final was like the shift because there was a new team coming and they were serving hot, playing a defensive minded team, and it led to a crazy final. And after that, all the finals uh, started to shift towards more um, a, a serve heavy game or a serving game more.
Mm,
The focus, the focus slowly switched.
wow. That's so wild. It's cool to learn like the history because I feel like I've talked to a few people who mentioned that, but um I hadn't heard it all at once. So when did you personally start playing? Like when did you join Roundnet?
I discovered the game in June of 2013. I wrote down Spikeball in my phone when I saw it near a beach in San Diego, and almost a year after, so in the spring of 2014, I bought my first kit online after looking at a few YouTube videos because there was nothing happening outside of the US and very few videos on YouTube. So I bought one, and that's when my Roundnet journey started.
Nice. So like 2014 was the beginning for you.
2014 was the beginning. 2016, like every final was, I started at a good spot because every final was crazier than the last one because it was like defense and offense was getting better, serving was getting better, all the skills were getting better. So the game was changing very fast. It was very impressive to see who could adapt the fastest because the game was changing every single tournament. And in 2016, it was like the peak. And after that, for most of the competitive scene, we needed change to keep the game as spectator friendly as it was in 2016, 2015, 2016. People would stop by and they wouldn't need to wait for 5 or 10 minutes to see a rally. They could just wait and they would see a few rallies in 2 minutes. So they would be hooked. And that's what got me in. Because my background is tennis, and in tennis, um, rallies happen at the pro level like 70% of the time. There's a back and forth in between players. And in Roundnet, we're even in the golden age, rally percentage wasn't that high. It was in between 10 and 15%. But now we lost half of those rallies because of hitting and setting and all the different fundamentals, which got way better through time. And yes,
So really it sounds like you came into RoundNet as people were starting to learn all of these new ways of playing the game, how to hit better, how to serve better, defense was getting better. All of it was growing together, but then it became clear that offense was growing faster than defense was growing.
yes,
Is that and then so then that was like around the 2016 kind of mark where then it
yes,
became clear that offense became much quicker in terms of its progression than like serve, receive, and defense.
yes. So in 2017, it was the start of a new era. It was it was the start of CS, Shizik Showalter, and they were so clean compared to everyone. They would not get dug, defended. at all. So by being clean and by not being defended, it would be fun to watch a team that like had mastered or was better at the different skills than the other teams. But also it led to games that were progressively less fun to watch because they were so clean and it wasn't it wasn't who's the best on defense. It was a battle of who's the cleanest to put it away. It was more like a who's the best at doing side outs. Like it was like put away ball.
Word. So then all of that led up to you then playing table spike on the sidelines while
Yes.
that game was going on. Cool.
Yes. So it was serving was going up, defense was like stable or going down, and all the fundamentals were getting better. And by having all the fundamentals better, serving was still the one that was more focused on because you could get breaks more way easier with aces than by playing actual defense against players who had spent the time to master setting and hitting. So that started the era where the new players and even the pro players would start spending a lot more time on serving.
Hmm.
Because before that, when I started, um, it was one serve. It was only one serve, and there were more balls in play that we currently have with two serves because you could play defense.
So it was
So
one serve, and if you faulted, it was the other team's point.
if it was a pocket, it was a redo. You got a second serve if it pocketed. So you
Oh.
wanted your serve to there wasn't spin serves at that time. So you wanted to hit the middle lane so it would stay down and hit the near net and not the back lip so it wouldn't lip up because that was getting called. So you aim for that like middle and middle and near part of the net to keep your serve legal, and most players were able to hit that from the 6 foot serving line at the time. And serving serving faults were not a thing, but when the fundamentals got better and the put away percentage got way better, players needed to put more pressure on serves. So it
Mm.
led to more lip ups and more pockets that were being called. That's when went we switched to two serves. We added one serve opportunity. And with two serves in the beginning, it led to more balls in play because people were putting their serve on second serve. That was the idea behind the second serve. But when fundamentals got even better, that tapping on your second serve wasn't a way to win. Players started hitting hard both serves, and that's when double fault percentage went to where it is right now.
Yeah, and what are we sitting at now? Like the stats that I was looking at for the World's tournament, I think we're at like
30,
35%.
sometime 30,
Yeah,
40%. I've seen like games go up to 50% of double faults in the last 3 years.
that's insanity. Half of the
Yeah.
points you don't even play just because it was a
Yes,
double
and
fault.
the thing that we never consider is that we consider like half of the points is a double fault. But when we consider the amount of serves that are done, it's more than half. There's points that are played that will end up in an ace or a put away or a rally that there was also a fault before. So the
Hmm.
amount of fault on serves when you count them, um, it's it's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
like the amount of time that you're just standing around and watching someone like swing their arm
exactly.
once. Yeah.
Yes.
It's way higher than the amount of double faults, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I see what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Because
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, okay. Okay, so that gives me a really good history. I feel like that's very helpful to hear just to understand more about why you were then inspired to start creating the table style platform, playing form. Um, So yeah, so we were talking through the table, and you were saying that you had just made the smaller net by taking the old spike ball, like the spike ball basic set, pulling
Yes,
out one of the rims, sticking it together with four, but
yes,
then that was pocketing too much. So
yes,
then you went back to like a five rim standard set, put a table on top of it. But then you
yes.
said that flat putaways were still like you could hit really low angles and stuff, so that still didn't solve the problem.
We could see that with time, with setting and hitting getting better, it wouldn't fix the balance of the sport because hitting could still be way too good.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me where you went from there.
So that's when we started decreasing the size of the coffee table and the different prototypes. Uh, we at some point my Revol prototype was 24-inch in diameter,
And is the normal set 36?
36.
Okay. So you
So
cut a full
24
12 inches
of the diameter.
off
So
the diameter.
it might be like 50% of the area, a way smaller target. So way
Wow.
less angles. So because all my testing was done with um, spike ball standard ball. That's the only ball that I had access to that was consistent. Um, so I started increasing the size of the target again by raising the lip. And the idea of the combination of both is to be able to play with, to decide what is the size of the target that we want to balance hitting and defense. And we'll make the rules, the serving rules after that, based on what balances hitting and defense in a 360 game. For me, serving was something that I could change in the future. The thing I had to focus on was balancing hitting in a 360 game and playing defense in a 360 game.
That's fascinating. Okay, that's a really interesting approach, is that you realize that the problem was the imbalance between hitting and defense
Yeah,
because it was that hitting was so good that was forcing people to have to serve way harder because you
yeah,
needed to force that first bad touch.
yeah,
Okay, so then you were trying to balance defense and hitting, and you were thinking that the best way to do that was to find the optimal size of the table platform plus the lip on the side. Um,
yes.
so when you did the really small set, was that too easy for defense? Or why did you not stay really small? Like, why did you want to go bigger?
When it was very small, if the set was bad, it was very hard to keep the rally going. So
Because your target was so
you,
small.
you needed a good set and a good hit to have a chance um, at returning the ball to the net and making the other team play. But if the set was good and the hit was good, which would be in the future, it was still a put away because you could hit below knee level. So players would have to crowd the net or play like double block. And the thing that many of us have always, um, I think many people in the world and in the Roundnet community can agree that the long rundowns or the most impressive part of the game we play.
Mm.
Um, the rallies that, and also the feeling playing when you get a good touch from far and you bring it back and you win the rally. That must be like the best feeling in Roundnet. And from
Mm.
watching too, watching a rally that goes back and forth deep, that has always been the rallies that got the most views on social media.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's the most like easy to comprehend of how incredible it is what just happened, you know? It's like a
And
lot.
how much athleticism you need to consistently bring it back from far.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas like body, just like a body up is cool, like it look, but I don't think for a random person who sees it one time, do they really understand how technically advanced a good body is? I think the only type of body stuff that looks super cool for like a first time viewer is probably like body touch to a crazy diving soft touch or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that led to some very nice plays. Um, it's just, in my opinion, in a 360 game, body block, body defense would be a type of defense that is used when you're trying to figure out how to play defense against the other team. You're not getting ups or you're not able to get any touch from farther out. But for me to be able to get those quick touches from farther out or to be able to run deep is the kind of defense that I wanted to make more frequent and a way to win. Because we've
Yeah.
seen it, like some players can play very good body defense, but if it's only body defense and half of the time it touches you and you don't get a touch, and when it touches you right, you get to bring it back with a soft touch. Um, I think it's sad a little bit because I would want like more touches being made, yes, and those touches to be like hard, but of um, of a quality that you can still like bring it back. Because so many touches happen, like the body defense. What's the percentage of conversion for body defense? It's like it's not high. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
gonna pop up like you want it, and you're gonna bring it back, and it's gonna lead to a crazy defensive point. But most of the time, if you're able to do that, you're gonna set it over the net, and the point is over. The other team is, it's very rare that it goes back and forth. So even that, it's like body defense, you're very close to the net, your up is very close to the net, your teammate is close to the net, everything is so fast. The other team doesn't have time to reset to cover 180 degrees each. It's like 1, 2, 3, put away, no chance for a rally, because that type of defense doesn't give time to the defense uh, to get back into position.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because the current uh rule set with a good hitter, I, as someone who likes to play defense and wants rallies, have to play body defense because if not, they're going to hit angles around us or hit long balls around us where we can't get there. Um, but yeah, then once you're close, the majority of the time, and this was the most frustrating thing for me playing these last few tournaments that I've been playing, is just witnessing how much of the time people just set a body, the ball is past them, and they're just kind of like, and like that's the whole play. They just like the ball just like scoots through their arm down here, like past your shoulder here, and all you can do is be like, or it like hits your knee and skims off the other way. So I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting that you thought, okay, we need to still like we want more defense, yes, but we don't just want defense that's in close. We want to be able to spread the game. Interesting.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So then you're at this point where you are starting to adjust the playing surface size so that you can get the ball back on, but you are also adding the lip on the side so that the defense can be able to step off net a bit more. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Nice. And then
So,
so take me through more of that process.
because at that time, body defense was also not one of the only ways to play defense. We were used to like quick touches and long rundowns. Um, Body defense was something that a few players had started to do, but it wasn't the way to play defense. And now it became the way to play because the angles were uh, way more crazy than ever before. And also the power. So if you don't take out that range and don't play body defense or double, body defense, you have no shot at touching the ball.
Hmm.
So
So yeah, continue. Where did it go from there? Like, how did you find the ideal for you, or at least the set that you have right now?
so I tried to find a relationship. It might not be the right word. A relation? I don't know. I tried to find how do you call that in maths or physics when there's a link in between
Yeah, you could say the ideal relationship between, yeah.
relationship. So I tried to find a relationship in between the size of the target and the lip. So that's where I just started to make calculations to see what would be the minimum angle of entry of the ball and the minimum angle of exit of the ball. Because I realized that the problem that we had was that the angle of exit was too low. If
Hmm.
we wanted more defense in a 360 game, we needed the ball to come off higher and um, in a way that would be predictable. Um, so, yeah, so there's one thing with a flat surface, when the ball is hit, if it's near the surface or off net, when it is hit, you know the different trajectories that are possible compared to a net where you don't really know exactly where it's going before it hits the net because of the different parts of the net that don't lead to a bounce coming off the same way, higher, lower, or the sides. So it gave defense a little bit more time to react by playing on the board because as soon as the set comes off of the setter's hand, you know the hitter's option because the surface is not gonna create any surprise for the bounce. It's gonna be a true bounce. So that was one advantage, one of the advantages that I really enjoyed from my testing on a board. And after that, it was just to make calculation and testing to figure out how can you make the lip and the board where it's not too hard to reach the target and the minimum, the lowest you can hit most of the time is not below knee level. It was to bring hitting the hits to come off higher than the knees, at least knees or waist up, so the defense would have that air time to chase it down and to cover some ground um, on a 360 court.
Mm. Word. Yeah, that's a really interesting process to go through. And the fact that you were thinking about all this stuff in like 2020 was when were you doing
Yeah,
these tests? Yeah, and
yeah,
everyone
2020.
now it's 2024 and we're all like, "Yo, the game's broken. It's not working. What's going on?" And
Yeah,
you've just been at it for 4 years.
yeah. Offense is not where we want it to be after
Hmm.
3 years of no hit zone. And people are starting to realize that you might be able to create the amount of rallies and movement and that they want on by playing on the net, but they need to add so many rules, exactly like you had to do in your last testing tournament. So you play on that equipment and you need to add so many layers and so many rules to balance hitting and defense, whereby changing the size of the target and the angles that you can hit into, you fix the root cause of the problem. After that, you can figure out what the best rules are for your 360 game. That was my process.
Wow. Word. What about, did you test height of the net at all? Like how high the net
Yes,
is off the ground?
the bottom of the board is exactly the same height as a net.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same height. I did testing. I raised it to 12 inches. And it, for me, it was better to change the size of the target and to leave more time to the players to hit the ball. Because when you make the set higher, you don't have as much time. So it made hitting harder but hitting was already hard enough for newer players on the smaller surface with the smaller diameter and raised lip that I didn't need to make hitting even harder by increasing the size of the legs. And by raising the size of the legs, you make the set more wobbly too. It's not as um, solid on the ground. It's not as grounded if the legs are higher. I had to make it portable. It would never be as portable as a net because I had the surface that was standardized and like always bouncing the same, and it was hard. So I had more material. It wouldn't be as easy to carry around. So I had to keep the amount of material as low as I could while also balancing the game and making the game breakable in smaller parts so it could fit in a bag because we're not at a point where we're at a point where players go to the park and they ride their bike and they need to be able to have their equipment on their back. So I had to put this all together. I found a size of a target that was very similar to the current Revol set. The lip was higher. Um, and I played with pros in California in 2020, and they had many rallies on a higher lip on the beach where you're slower with simple rules. Like we put the ball in play, and the raised lip removes so many angles that you can still get rallies on the beach. And so, from those dimensions, I had a decision to make to uh, start the molds for Revol. So I made the lip lower than what my testing with the standard ball was giving me because I wanted to increase the size of the ball in the future because it had never been tested before or produced before. And I knew that by having a bigger ball, I would be able to slow down the ball and it would help fixing the the balance. The Im is imbalance a word in English?
Mm-hmm.
So it would help fix the imbalance of the sport by leaving me some room to play with different balls. So I went with the easier target, and I also knew that I had to make the target easier because newer players and kids, they need a bigger target to be able to reach the target. And I cannot make a surface that is only for top level. So I made it slightly easier. And some people, after testing or just seeing it, think it's too small or the lip is too high. But from my testing and the testing that I did in the months following my first, following the production of the set, we can see on YouTube or in the first matchup in between Boisterous, so Preston and Caleb against Gabe and Jarrett, we can see that defense is still really hard off a smaller surface on the Revol because the ball comes off very fast. And I don't know where I was going exactly, but the target is smaller and defense is still not a way to win in that matchup. It's still a thing of who can put the most serve pressure to force an error. And defense is like more, I don't know, it's still low. It's still too low. It's like 10% of the time. A rally happens 10% of the time with a very small target. And people are like, it's too small. And I'm like, no, it's not too small. It's just the ball had to be figured out and the rules. It's not the size of the target because when you take pros, they don't hit the lip that much. They don't miss the target that much. And they still put the ball away against the best defenders in the game at that time. And still to this day, they're still the some of the best in the game, and they couldn't figure out defense. That one time they played because hitting was still very good with a small plastic ball.
Mm.
So the other advantage that the board gave me was that when you have a hard surface, you can test any ball that you want, and it's gonna give you a predictable and true bounce. Where all the testing I've seen through time on a net, if you test a bigger or heavier ball, your surface is not necessarily built to
Like
to play
withstand. Yeah.
to withstand a ball like that. So you need to make the net different. You need to change the netting. You need to reinforce the legs, the rims. Um, and it's still gonna pocket a lot more because a net is nice with a small little yellow ball. But if you make it bigger and heavier, it's gonna go deeper inside the net. And we know that when it's going deeper, when it comes off, it lips up and it goes straight up, and defense that comes from bad hitting and hits going straight up, for me and for many people, are not fun to watch. I want defense to happen, but I don't want it to be given or easy. I want it to be frequent, and I want it to be like a endurance battle and consistency battle. But I don't want you to just stand there and get the touch. I want you to have to do the basic stuff on defense, mirror each other, cover, push, pull, one close, one far, like strings. I want it to be like very dynamic, and for the strategies and the advanced strategies on defense to be more to be the center of our discussions. I feel like in our sport, we're not talking that much about defense because it's not a way to win. But with a 360 rally base sport, all our discussions should be about that hitter combined with his teammate, that setter. How can we play defense and cover ground against them? But it's not, maybe it's like that at the very top level in spikeball and it's not very effective. Um, but I would like it to be like that at all levels. Like, how can I cover the court better with my teammate?
Yeah. Yeah, Mitch and I always tried to do that in Premiere, but eventually it gets to the point where you're like, these people are so good at setting and hitting that we just need to split double body and then close gaps. And that's
Yeah,
like all we can do, all we can, and then you can just kind of like pray that you're gonna get the
yeah,
touch because it happens so fast. And of course, there's people like Buddy Hammond who seem to have somehow like broken the space-time continuum and like see things in slow motion or something, and he gets like 10%, 20% more touches than any other
yeah.
human on Earth, which is insane.
So,
It's crazy
so
that he
my
can do
my
that, but
my take for Buddy and Clark when they were playing defense when no one else was that they had been playing for 10 years. So they had built their fundamentals on defense and their reflexes for the current equipment. So when people were trying to figure out the no hit zone and hitting around it, they had seen enough hits and enough hitting styles that they could play defense. But as time went on, we saw that their defense, their rally percentage also went down because people were getting to their level of hitting and setting.
yeah. Okay, so you were talking about that you had made this net, you tested it with Preston and Gabe and a couple others, and defense was still too hard there. So did you adjust the net again after that, or what the set again? Like what happened from there on in?
Since defense was still too hard, that's when I knew. So I launched the product, and I'm not. I wasn't pleased with the amount of rallies and defense. It wasn't how um, the top players were already the top players were already figuring out how to put the ball away, the small ball away on the surface. So instead of um, having everyone try Revol at that time, I started working on the rules and the different balls. So I tested more than 30 balls on the surface, different materials, different size, and I found a bigger ball that would play very well, but a bigger ball on a revolve surface led to defense that was dynamic and quick reflexes, but only that. There were no long rundowns because the plastic ball of the plastic surface would not bounce over the other team and far.
Mm.
Because what I realized is by changing the net to a board, I got rid of the lip ups that led to the crazy rundowns. I realized that it's the net and the bad the medium or bad hitting that led to the crazy um, rundowns. And I didn't have that because you were always going to hit as low as you could off the Revol kit because the ball didn't have enough bounce to go over. So it wasn't a strategy to send it over the other team.
Mm.
That's when I ended up producing this one, my
Mm.
Pro Ball. It has good grip and a good bounce. By having a good bounce, it was going too far, but you could send it over the other team or low. So you had access to a few different shots, but the shot that couldn't be defended was the shot that was going too far.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I switched from a no drop zone with the plastic ball to prevent the very small shots since everything was closer, switching that boundary to a out of bounds. So with this one, it's harder to drop and you can still hit low and high above the other team. But if you hit over and there's an out of bounds, you give them a chance of chasing it down and you have your own chance to reset your position with your teammate. So in a rally with this ball and the out of bounds, there can be a momentum shift in the rally, like in
Mm.
tennis, where you're in a bad spot, you just tap it on or you just tap it over the other team. It's not a put away, but it gives you time to reset and hope to have a better touch, better set, better hit the next time to put the ball away.
Mm. That's an interesting way of thinking about it, that like you want to be able to get into rallies where it can shift between what team seems like they're the one that's going to get the point. Because
Yeah.
that's really what's exciting about volleyball or tennis or ping pong. It's like all of a sudden this one dude's hammering the ball and the other person's
Yeah.
way back on defense. And then it switches and you're like, whoa, what's going on?
And they win the point, and it's
Yeah,
crazy. Like in
yeah,
ping pong, I've seen crazy ping pong rallies lately on my feed, and it's like the person is way back, and they
yeah,
put it on, they put it on, they put it on, and they hit the crazy winner, and
yeah.
yeah, that's so fun to watch. And I know nothing about ping pong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good way to think about it. Okay, so that led you to, so you had the new ball. Also, did you do something with like standardized pressure in the ball? Because I know one big issue that we have right now at a tournament is that you'll feel one ball and it will be super squishy, another ball will be really hard, and you're like trying to find a consistent ball. That's a big problem right now.
So my first version of Revol, what with the was with a bigger plastic ball, like the Spike Balls Rally Ball, and
And by
do
I
I
think
have it?
that in the US we would probably call that like a rubber ball, not plastic. Plastic sounds like harder. Is there a reason why you say plastic versus rubber?
Um, yeah, I can switch to rubber. The problem is that I know the material.
Mm-hmm.
and it's not rubber, it's
Okay, yeah,
PVC.
that's what
And
I was
PVC
asking.
is for me, if we were to have a rubber ball, but this one that I want you to feel that is made in Italy, this is silicone,
Yeah.
silicone rubber. This is rubber.
Okay.
And this is plastic. It's PVC, the material. And PVC is what you use for like plumbing.
Yeah, yeah. PVC is those like
It's
hard white
yeah,
pipes, right?
yes.
How
That's
did it
why
turn
we
into that?
they have like liquid PVC and they cook it in a mold while the PVC is like on the outer layer of the mold. And they cook it while rotating like liquid plastic, like most plastic. But
Whoa.
so they make that, and I
Okay,
don't know.
so
The process might be the same for this, but this is rubber silicone, and this for me, like the official word is PVC, and PVC is not rubber.
yeah, so it is a plastic ball. I was asking because I didn't know if you
But
like
people
knew
don't know.
something. No, yeah, I had
People
no
don't know.
idea. That's
So it
fascinating.
might be better for me to stop saying plastic because they might feel like everything I do is plastic and Spikeball isn't, where I'm using the same material as Spikeball and people,
I would
you'd
pretty
say
much
rubber?
no, I would always say that. If I were you, I'd be like, no, it's liquid plastic, that's how they make it. And
Yeah.
you're just gonna blow people's minds and they'll be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
this guy knows. Because yeah, it's a really cool thing to learn. I had no idea.
So for the ball, my first ball, I did all my testing with a, a small uh, PVC, a small plastic ball.
Yeah,
And the easiest thing to do first before changing materials was to test a bigger ball of the same material.
yeah.
So my first ball, so it's a bigger,
Okay.
it's just a bigger ball of the same material. It's not inflated right now,
Yeah.
but it's just a similar plastics and bigger.
Okay.
So that was my first ball for Revol because the easiest thing to do was to increase the size to
Yeah.
bring even more balance to the game. So I increased the size. I produced a ball like that even before that. My first year of competitive Revol, without doing a big push to the community, to the players, I found a ball that was sold at Decathlon. Decathlon is the biggest sports manufacturer in the world. They're a company from France. They're not very popular in the US. Not popular, but they have like 6 stores in the US. But outside of the US, they're the leading sports supplier in the world. They had a ball similar to that. So I played my first year of competitive Revol with the ball from that manufacturer. I then developed my ball that was very similar to theirs, a rally ball, slightly bigger than the rally ball. And after that, since this, so the pressure with the rally ball that led, if it was too inflated, it would come off fast and you couldn't get in a, like defense wasn't fun to watch because it was just reflexes and you don't have time to chase the ball down because it's going too fast. So the pressure for this plastic ball was flat, no pressure at all,
Hmm.
and a no drop zone. Because with a flat ball and everything staying low and staying close to the set, the drops were overpowered. So my no drop zone was based on the serving line. I had the serving line that was 5 feet away from the set. Um, yeah, I don't know how to approach that because that was like that's the rule testing part that I
Yeah,
was telling
yeah.
you that it's like since I made the target smaller and the ball bigger, serving from 6 feet was too hard. So I brought the server closer.
Yeah.
So when you bring the server closer, it's easier to put the ball in play. But at some point, the angle at which you can serve is too wide for one player.
Yep.
That's when the second player came came in for the on the serve receive
Oh
end.
wow. Yeah.
And so the dynamic with this ball was one serve, two serves. It was two serves, serving from closer, serving to the two serve receivers, and the drops were not legal because the ball would touch the ground too fast. It wasn't fun. So no drops inside that 5 foot serving line for a whole year. And it was fun. Many players got adapted to it. They really liked it, but I was missing that part of the game that I really wanted to have the long rundowns. So to bring the long rundowns, I started thinking about it, and I needed a ball with more bounce. Um, so more grip and more bounce. The problem with those two plastic balls is that a plastic ball off a plastic surface, it skips and it comes off low, and sometimes it hits the lip. So not fun because with my current rules, it ends the point. So it's an error. And if it doesn't hit the lip, it comes off low and fast, and it's hard to play defense or impossible. So by having a ball that would have more grip, I looked at the science behind tennis. Why does the ball bounces higher on clay than on grass? Do you know?
No, I didn't even know that that was a that it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so my tennis background helped me for that. So it's in clay, the ball bounces way higher because when the ball hits the clay, it's the same ball, but when it hits the clay, it breaks and the energy has to go somewhere. So it goes up because it cannot go through.
Oh. Yeah, I would
And
think with grass it would just be because the grass would like be softer.
it's soft and it doesn't break. It skips.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting
the
that grip matters to push it up.
grip means it's the energy will go somewhere. It cannot go the same way, so it has to go another
Wow.
way.
Okay.
It has to go up. So if I had a grippy ball instead of a plastic ball off a plastic surface, I would create that bounce that would bring back the the trajectory, the exit angle needed for long rundowns. I started working on this high quality material. Um, so this ball is very grippy. And when I got it, I put no pressure inside. And when you have a bladder, so this ball has two layers, like a volleyball or a football or a handball. Um, when the bladder inside doesn't have any pressure, it's not made like the ball is not made in a way to have zero pressure. It was playing well, but by having zero pressure, the bladder inside started moving
Mm.
because it's the pressure inside the bladder that keeps the bladder. Um, I don't know how to say that, but
Yeah,
it
like all
keeps
the way
both
up against the
exactly,
outer layer. Yeah.
exactly. So I bought. I don't have it with me now. I'll show you another time. I showed you the gauge, the digital gauge. 1 second, because it's a fun toy. I bought this. It's a digital gauge
Yep.
for balls. And so I started testing very precise PSI readings with this ball that I got 1 year ago. So I figured out the pressure, ordered, mass produce a first batch of those, got them 6 months ago, figured out the pressure, and with the right pressure, uh, I'm at 2 psi right now. You still have it's still soft, the touch is still nice, but it's consistent. It you cannot put your fingers inside the ball as much uh, as a
Yeah.
ball like this, but this leads to a lot of control and problem, and it's hard to have a ball that is always the same if the ball you can like do this
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what, and with this, by you still can go through, but not as much. And at the same time, I figured out the ball pressure for this high quality ball and the out of bounds. What would be the logic in between the pressure and the out of bounds? And that's when I changed my serving rules again to to um, to play well with the out of bounds. That was my final change of the current serving rules. And the out of bounds, what I realized is that if I wanted the players to practice the rundowns and the defense that was different than what the newer players had been doing, the body defense, because when a player starts learning the game in 2024, they learn to do body defense first. They don't learn the quick touches. They don't learn the rundowns because it doesn't happen very fast.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the game, everyone gets so good at setting and hitting that you have to go in directly when you start the game. So my logic with the out of bounds was that the out of bounds would be based off your level of play.
Mm.
I would put the out of bounds at a place where you would be able to bring the ball consistently to the Revol target, the Revol set.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, my elite distance, my pro distance is the size of the middle circle on a football soccer pitch. It's
Okay.
9 meters or 30 feet.
Yep. Yeah, 9 meters, just about 30 feet.
And it's a good distance because it's a lot of running. And if it's bigger than that, it's almost impossible to have them at a tournament. And also by having them at 30 feet after a few games, like you're doing sports and it's enough of running. Because if I
Yeah.
go farther than that, you have to cover that. In my mind, our court is something you have to cover often. So 30 feet for now is like my pro distance. And if you're advanced, intermediate, or beginner, if you're a beginner, you don't need an out of bounds because you're hitting more like volleyball and the ball
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go far. And as soon as you get better, you can start with a 20 foot out of bounds and you can go up to 30 and
Yeah.
it might be too much running for you and you might stop at 25, but that's fine because in a tournament there would be 20, 25, 30, and the ultimate goal is to have final the final of a Revol tournament be played in the middle of a soccer football pitch
Oh, nice. That's a
with
cool idea.
everyone
Yeah.
around the thick, very nice line. And everyone can sit like very like closer to the players because they don't have to worry about that one time in two games where it goes 50 feet.
Yeah.
Because in the current Revol with the current Revol gameplay, if it goes 50 feet, it's over.
Yeah.
So you can have the spectators be closer and more in the action.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, one other thing was that the obviously with the pro set, it happens a lot that will end up falling on the net, snapping a rim. I've even had people serve a ball and snap a rim just by serving.
Yeah.
The Premier Spike set obviously has now like an enforced rim that's a bit stronger. But how much do you find the Revol set breaking? Have you had stuff like that?
No, for I'm proud to say I'm still waiting for the first Revol set to break. Um, it's been on the market for 3 years now, and I still haven't got any complaint about something broken. And the kits that I've used in schools for the last 3 years, I'm still using the same, and they're not broken.
Wow. So even with
So
like
it's
kids running and jumping over them, probably landing on top of them sometimes and stuff too.
yeah, they jump on it. They don't jump on them as often because the set doesn't look like a trampoline anymore. Um, but even when they stand on it, they're not heavy enough to break it. And sometimes in shows, I stand on it and it's fine. I don't recommend it because if you're an adult and you jump in the middle, you might go through it. But it's not been an issue. It's at this point, it's very hard to break.
Nice. That's hugely different. Also, the fact that the net can't break too. That I've had rips and holes in my nets a couple times. I've had to order a new net. So that's also nice.
No problem with that.
Do you have to
That's
like
that's an
do you have to clean the playing surface at all? Do you have to clean the board or anything like to keep it in condition?
I've only cleaned it with I've only cleaned the set after playing on the beach because it gets a little bit dirty from the sand and the dust. Uh, but you could even play off the sand. It's not an issue. It's just you can clean sand, but when you play on grass or in a gymnasium, it doesn't get dirty or anything.
Yeah.
The other
Neat.
thing, it's not something that I'm not I don't think we'll mention that soon, but now that I have a ball that I like, gameplay that I like, a future set, a Revol 2.0, it wouldn't be of plastic. That's the like last thing like to close the loop. If I sell enough sets and I have a competitive scene, the next version, the board would be either one part only. You cannot break it down and it's very hard to carry, but it's like it doesn't move. The sound is better. It's great, and there's added rubber on top. Um, I've already started to look into that, but it's not something that I can make in the near future. But by having a board like the netting in spikeball, they try to do a tighter netting, looser netting with a board. You can do the softness, the grip that you want. You can bring back spins. There's so many things that we can do on a flat surface that we cannot do with a net. And
Mm.
that's something I'm excited for the future because it's going to be part of the second round of R&D will be to improve the surface itself.
Makes me think of playing ping pong where like if you
Exactly.
play on a professional table, the ball grips way nicer. If you have a professional ball, a professional
Yeah.
paddle, you get way more control over the ball. I can imagine
Yeah.
that
I have
having, yeah.
I have a ping pong paddle here that is made from the same material as the Roundnet nets and the Revol set. And on top of it, there's a nice layer of rubber, and I can see that in the future, but that's like long
Yeah.
term,
Yeah, that's cool though.
long term thing.
What are the advantages of playing on a board rather than a net?
When you set up a board, it's way easier to set up. It takes you a few seconds and you always have the same surface. You're always playing off the same thing. It's already standardized. Everyone who plays off a board has the same board, has the same bounce from the surface. So that's one advantage. And if you hit on the side or in the middle, you get the same bounce. So that helps defense, but also for me visually to have the bounces come off the same and not be based on where it lands on the surface. I think it's visually appealing.
Yeah, appealing.
Appealing.
That's the word. Yeah.
um, so there's that. And also, yes, on defense, easier to cover 360-degree if the bounce is more predictable. And the board uh, allowed me to test different ball, different sizes, different materials, because the flat surface, the hard surface, doesn't care um, of the weight and the density of the ball. It's just gonna give back the energy, and it's the ball. So it's the ball that's gonna bounce the way the ball is made. So it makes the focus more on the ball. You don't have to worry about the surface anymore. It's gonna give you a true bounce. You can focus on what's the size of the ball, the material, the pressure you want inside the ball. So that's something that is very nice, I think, for the future of the sport and for competitive play. The fact that you can just focus on the size, the material, and the pressure.
Mm. So advantages are really, it's always consistent. It's quick to set up. No more lip ups, no more roll ups, no more like
No,
debating calls on if it was clean or not.
no,
Uh, and defense gets more predictable because the bounce is more consistent. You know what's going to
yes,
happen with the ball. Even when it hits the very edge of the board, it's still going to have the same bounce as hitting the middle of the board.
yeah,
And it's allowing you to then test balls and test all the aspects of the ball rather than having a more complex equation of what's the difference between this ball and this net and how they're interacting.
yeah, exactly. It makes one parameter of the game that is like it's locked in, it's locked down, and you can focus on the ball and the rules to play on that surface that gives you something that is
Nice.
consistent
And
play.
that feels a lot like what you mentioned earlier when you said you want to solve problems at the root. You want to make
Yes.
like the set and the rules as consistent from the ground up as possible. So I really like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. So that's why the plastic surface is good. Um, what about the lip, the raised lip? What would you say are the advantages of the raised lip? Why did you create that?
Yes. So without the raised lip, you can hit very low. The raised lip removes some of the time that the hitting team has to put the ball back on the surface. You have to hit from slightly higher. You have to hit um, a little bit before. You have less time. So by having a little bit less time and hitting from higher and have to hit down a little bit more, it makes the trajectory go up more on the exit side, gives more time to the defense. You can still hit pretty low when you get used to the lip and you get a good set over the middle. So it's just a way to make defense easier and offense harder a little bit.
Nice. So raised lip, also just to go over the benefits. Raised lip is pretty much no more hits coming below your knees. The ball is
Yes.
always going to be shooting upwards. Um, yeah,
And you can
sorry.
still do it. You can still hit below knee level,
Mm.
but if you're very skilled, you get a precise set, precise hit, you can do that shot, but it's going to be 1% of the time or 5% of the time. And
So
it's going
if
to
you have
be
yeah.
a skilled shot and it's going to be rewarded, which is fine. Like in many sports, there's skill shots that are not defendable and it's part of a rally sport, but they're not like happening all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's like in volleyball, like the perfect set, perfect hit combination. It should be game over. It's like that
Yeah,
was
it's
perfect placement. Well done. You deserve the point.
exactly.
Nice. Okay, so we got that. So tell me about what are the benefits of the ball that you're using?
The ball that I developed has high quality material from beach volleyball, so it's already good to play in different outdoor conditions. And with a bladder and standardized pressure, you can play in different temperatures and adjust your pressure accordingly to get the right bounce. So it's nice to play in different conditions. It's a consistent bounce, standardized pressure, something that we lack in our sport. And it's bigger too. The ball that I went for is a nice size, so you cannot go around as easily. You have to be better to get the same amount of control or something similar. So by making it's a higher barrier of entry, but when you get used to the ball, it's more fun because when you're playing with the ball, you cannot carry it like crazy and do crazy shit
Cuts
with
and
the ball.
stuff. Yeah.
Uh, you don't have that, so it's a loss on your side because you cannot do that. But it's a win when you're playing defense because the other team cannot do it. So you can read the set and the hit better because the ball doesn't do crazy stuff. Also, it doesn't. it's not as forgiving as a plastic ball. So it's harder in the beginning, but when you get used to it, it's better for the balance of the game to have a ball that is consistent bounce and not forgiving too much. So you have to
Nice.
be better at the skills. So it creates a deeper uh, depth in setting. Like setting is not just you put like the right angle with your hand. You now have to do the exact, you need a point of contact that is more precise, and you have to put the right amount of power. You have to push the ball right to get the set right. Where with the spike ball, a round net standard ball, you can just align your hand correctly, and the ball will probably end close enough to the net where it's possible to put it away. I feel like I see a lot of setting when the ball is very close to the net, the first touch. I see setting that is like more like just redirect the ball, and
Definitely.
there's not that touch of like, am I putting the right amount of power? Where with a ball like this, you add that layer in the sport and setting where you need that ball control, that extra ball control.
Interesting. Okay, so benefits of the ball would be that you now have this outside layer that's like a professional beach volleyball, so you can play in all sorts of weather outdoors as well.
Yes.
You have the bladder on the inside, which is allowing you to make more consistent ball pressure. You can
Yeah.
measure the ball pressure. So that means you're gonna have a consistent amount of inflation on the ball,
Yes.
and you can adjust that depending on the temperature outside. You're also the ball is a little bit harder to control because it's a little bit bigger and a little bit it's not as like forgiving in terms of the give in the ball,
It's
but
not
that
as soft.
not as soft. But that's actually it may seem like a negative when you're starting, but what that's actually doing is creating a more consistent professional ball and
Yes.
professional skill set that you need to develop to be able to
Yeah.
control a ball at that level. Um, yeah, leading
Yeah.
to just a more consistent and higher level of play that it takes, higher level of skill that it takes to play at a higher level.
Yeah. The
Nice.
the feedback that I've got the most from people, players in the community, I just give them the ball. They've never used it in the last 6 months. They take the ball and they tell me, "Ooh, it feels like a sports ball."
Yeah.
And that was the goal. So I'm really happy with the ball because I agree that it feels like a sports ball. It feels like a ball that we've always been looking for. So the fact that it plays well off a hard surface of the Revol set, I'm very happy with it. And with the out of bounds, it's very fun.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Watching it back, I think the thing that blew my mind the most was his idea that what you really need to focus on is balancing hitting and defense on a fundamental level before creating other rules for the sport. I think that is so brilliant because right now we have the sport the way it is and we keep trying to add rules or change equipment slightly to just try to get something that resembles a bit more of a rally based sport, but there are so many things we need to add to like keep patching up all the problems that are appearing as we move along. And I think that it is genius to be like, hold up, let's think outside. Let's think outside of the net a little bit. What are the other possibilities that are here? And again, I'm not saying this is the exact right answer, but I do think it is something that is so deeply worth testing. And I actually got a really awesome opportunity to meet up with Charles just a week or two ago, which was a couple weeks after we filmed this podcast episode, or we had this conversation that is now becoming a podcast episode. And we met up in Munich. He was actually traveling to Germany. I live in Germany now, and he was here for like a sports show where you kind of show off the equipment that you have and stuff like that. So I got to meet him. I got to test the board with him, and I actually got to bring a board home with me. So I'm going to be doing more testing on it with the Roundnet community here in Bonn and other Roundnet communities in Germany. So there's a lot of really cool stuff coming, and you might have also noticed at that one part in the podcast, he held up a silicone ball. I also got to test that ball. It is like, take the best pro ball you've ever felt and make it feel nicer. That's what it feels like. Charles was working out the kinks, doing testing with different types of balls. I even got to test a few of those silicone balls with him when I was with him in Munich. And the potential for both on board play but also on net play, it could be the next ball. I know that Premier Spike is inventing a ball right now, working on creating it. I'm excited to get to test that as well. And I know that Spike Ball is also working on their rally balls and stuff. So what I love to see is all the innovation that's happening right now. And another really amazing thing that I found about meeting Charles when I was with him in Munich, he doesn't care if it's Revol that is the answer. For the last 4 years, he's been adapting and upgrading Revol every year, every few months as he's had new ideas. So for him, it's all about, let's figure out how this sport is going to be the best and let's build the equipment for that. And I think that that is a beautiful way of thinking about it, rather than some of the companies that are currently running the game that sometimes seem to just kind of be going for profit and that's it. I think it's a really, really beautiful approach to doing all of this, and I think this is someone who the community should be uplifting and supporting. I'm excited to make more content on Revol, and excited to make more content and talk more with Charles and learn more from all of his processes, because there's so much to learn from this guy. If you want to check out Revol, you can check out their website, which is, let me make sure that I think it's revol.sport. Yeah. Website is revol.sport. You can also follow on Instagram at Revol Roundnet. Let me double check that as well. You can also follow on Instagram at Revol Roundnet. So those are two places where you can either support directly and get yourself a board and start testing it. Again, it's a test. It's a new idea. It's a crazy new idea. It's a crazy innovative idea, and I think it's something worth supporting. I think that they cost like $140 for the pro ball and pro net, which is awesome. And especially seeing that that ball is just so much higher quality than anything we've seen before. And if you want to follow on Instagram and stuff like that, you'll be able to get all the different updates and ideas that he's coming up with and get to watch the evolution of Revol. So a lot of cool stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and keep testing. Send us stuff. Comment below what you thought was the craziest thing about what Charles was saying, or if you have any ideas that popped up in your mind throughout the episode. Hope you're well. Sending you love from Germany. Peace.